My goodness, this summer has been so awesome, but I am exhausted. Hi everyone, it's Madeline from Rooted in Place. I figured I'd come back and do a cool little update video on all the things I've been working on and all the things that have been happening for me personally and within my company. June and July were some of the most magical months that I've experienced so far in my young fledgling business, and it has, though derailed and set aside a lot of other plans I had for myself this summer, especially with my nonfiction book, which I'll get into in a second, but it also has opened doors for me in so many other regards. For those that don't know me, my name is Madeline Feierstein. I'm a trained historian and criminologist. I run the company Rooted in Place LLC, which offers a whole myriad of things, but mainly public history endeavors, guided tours, workshops on genealogy and how to do history, and so much more history, social media education. I've taken aspects of all my work experience and educational degrees and put them into one. I've been a teacher, I've been a contractor for Department of Defense, I worked at a house museum. There's a lot of things I've done and a lot of places I've found myself. And for me, it's important to show people you can become a historian. It is very possible, and also very important, you can do history without ever getting a degree in it. So follow me on this journey, subscribe. I have a lot of links down below to the other places you can find me and other ways you can interact and connect with me. All right, so what's been going on? Let's start in June. So in June, I went to the Society of Civil War Historians conference, which is great. I had a great time. How many times can I say great in this vlog? Let's do a count, right? But I was also presenting for the first time at an academic conference. So for those that follow me on Instagram, you already know about this. I presented on a prisoner of war panel, which is super exciting for me personally. My subject areas are the history of prisons, hospitals, and American society during wartime. There's a lot of intersection with those three topics right there. And so on the panel, I had talked about the lack of awareness, lack of education on my city Civil War prisons. So I live in Alexandria, Virginia, which is right outside of Washington, D.C. And we had 5 prisons in this town during the war, but they don't get a lot of attention. People know they exist. I mean, I hope they do. But there's not a lot of scholarship on it, and all of the primary sources are undigitized in the National Archives. So for the past 3 to 4 years, I've been working with those primary sources to do like lectures, articles, things like this. And luckily, my hard work has paid off, because big update number 2 is my book's coming out on October 27th. And again, if you follow me elsewhere, you already know this, but my debut book is being published by the History Press, which is an imprint of Arcadia Publishing, and it's called Occupied Alexandria: How the Civil War Transformed a Southern City. So October 27th, it is already available for pre-order, which is really exciting. And I hadn't really heard from the publishing house for a while, which is how it goes. You sign a contract, they work on it, then it's in a queue with all these other manuscripts. And then in July, which is now, it's July 31st, the last day of July, but earlier this month, after I got back from the conference, I received notification that we're moving forward now with the full editing process. So it had been about 7 months of kind of waiting, which is normal. That's actually extremely quick. So I was very grateful for that. So I got the cover design, which I approved of. I'm gonna put it somewhere over here. And then I had to do a complete copy edit of my work. So I had to go line by line, addressing the editor's comments, but also making sure if I have any corrections. I wrote this, oh my gosh, about a year ago, because it was my master's thesis, and I graduated 2 years ago in 2024. And then last year in 2025, I took it and I made it into like a 5-chapter book. Essentially, I doubled it. I doubled the amount of pages, and I was able to then expand all the topics I wanted to expand in my thesis, but I had a page limit. So I hadn't seen the work really up front in the last 6 months, and I wrote it a year ago. And my writing style is great. I personally like the way I write, but I know my writing style has changed. Reading this back over, it just reads so academically, and it's not bad. It's just the way I write nowadays is a lot more conversational. It's less like a thesaurus, to be quite honest with you. I was reading this going, did this girl have a thesaurus on her or something? Like, oh my goodness. But at the same time, I use a lot of different vocab terms because I don't want to keep repeating the same term over and over again. Like, I have a whole chapter on hospitals in my city during the war, and I keep saying hospital, hospital, hospital. And there's times instead I said institution, facility, location, locale, site. I was trying to think of other ways because the word hospital came up like 15 times in one paragraph. And same thing with the prisons. Over and over again, just saying prison, prisoner, prisons, over and over. It's a lot. So anyways, I was editing that this month too, month of July. Month of July as well, pretty much an explosion of opportunities, which I was very grateful for. I was asked by the American Battlefield Trust to be a part of their virtual teacher institute, and I spoke on the rise of nationalism in the War of 1812. War of 1812 is a relatively new interest of mine. I've studied it for a few years. I've studied it socially, because like I said in the beginning, I study prisons, hospitals, and wartime American society. So I'm not a battlefield historian. I know of the battles, of course. Like I know Civil War battles, I know Revolutionary War battles, but I'm not a strategist. I'm not a military historian. So I knew about the War of 1812 and its consequences and what it did to American society. So I was able to speak very comfortably on that. But I came into the War of 1812 scholarship fairly recently compared to other people. I think the Civil War I've been in for a little bit longer than the War of 1812. World War I as well, I kind of got into at the same time as the War of 1812, but I have studied the social aspects of World War I far longer. This has been almost, 10 years. Because of my past work as a criminologist, I know I'm going on a tangent, but whatever. My past work as a criminologist allowed me to kind of intersect with these different time periods because I looked at the rise of far left and far right extremism in the United States. That was my focus area. So, when you think of far left, you're probably thinking environmental rights, animal rights, modern wars going on right now, or things like that. And then far right, you guys are probably thinking like neo-Nazi, KKK type stuff. But a lot of that, of course, didn't exist in how it is today. Essentially, I came into the World War I and War of 1812 kind of like from the side because I was already studying these things. I was already studying the rise of white supremacy, anti-immigration, also the rise of progressivism and what we now call today like woke politics. So I was familiar with a lot of the ongoings of these wars. But now I'm really grateful because I can, as a historian, like full-time historian now, I've set aside a lot of my criminology work. I'm able now to really dig into those primary sources in new ways. So in July, I had done that lecture and I was just so thrilled because it really felt like I was combining my worlds again. I hadn't really been able to talk about a lot of my criminological interests because in my work as a historian, it doesn't really cross over. I talk about prisons and the correctional system, and I've studied that before. The criminalization of mental illness, I talk about that with asylums. So there's some crossover, but I try not to inundate my followers and my audience with that because it can be very, very heavy. So doing the War of 1812 stuff just felt so good because I felt like I can go back to that era and really go back and look at like manifest destiny and like nationalism with that. That was pretty fun. And then of course with this business, part of what I do is guided tours. So guided tours is it's like the part-time job of my full-time job. It's like about 15 to 20% of what I do. But I have my weekends are basically meant for guided tours. So Sundays have been the busier days this summer. I've noticed a lot more people book on Sundays. So I had a couple tours the past few weeks, and that's been really nice. I like showing people my town. I like really showing people these sites and taking the history off a page and off a screen. Public history in general is just so important to me. I'm an academic at heart, but I love being able to take what I'm learning and bring it out to people. While I was at that June conference in Richmond, Society of Civil War Historians, I met so many amazing scholars and amazing people in the field. I was very privileged to be in conversation with them. I actually met people whose work I had cited from my book, for my thesis turned book, and it was just amazing to be able to shake their hand and go, thank you for chapter 4. That was great. And then part of those connections blossomed into new projects. So I have some work I've done for some museums. I have an exhibit I'm putting on next year. I'm not sure when. It's probably going to be the spring. And luckily, you guys, it is on St. Elizabeth's Asylum. Yay, it's coming back. I'm really looking forward to digging back into St. E's. And I have to go on the hunt for some records at St. E's that are not housed at the National Archives. Again, I'll tell you more about it as it gets closer. I'm not saying, it's happening. This thing is happening, but I want to be careful not to be too premature with what I'm going to be including in the exhibit, because maybe it won't come to pass. Maybe I'll have to change my direction. So once I actually have all my artifacts and sources, then I can be like, okay, here's what I'm talking about. But I think I'm going to jinx myself, because I'm actually really worried that I'm going to have to travel pretty far to find some of these things. Mainly because I can tell you in general, I'm looking at kind of like aid societies, benevolent societies, like religious groups that come into the asylum to help, right? And I'm thinking some of those records are with those societies, or with those like chaplains, that left and took the work with them. So just tracking that kind of stuff down is hard when their names weren't disclosed. A lot of these groups, or a lot of people that came into asylums did so kind of in the dark of night, in the cover of night, or they didn't make their association with an insane asylum known. You know what I mean? With the exhibit, I will have to go back to the National Archives, which we love doing, and I'm going to be doing a lot more of that in September, going back to that massive ledger at St. E's, the one that begins on opening day, January 1855, this massive, like, big atlas type book. And then, segueing into our next topic here, my nonfiction book. So, as you've seen from my past couple of videos, I am still writing the proposal for a biography on a Civil War surgeon, Dr. Edwin Bentley. Now, when I say I'm writing the proposal, the idea is that I have a mental deadline for myself. I would like to, ideally, before St. Patrick's Day this coming year, March 17th, 2027, have submitted that proposal to various publishers or through an agent who will then submit it for me. The reason is I'm getting married on St. Patrick's Day this coming March 17th, 2027. So I don't want to deal with it when I'm with, of course, doing my wedding, and then I'm going on my honeymoon right after my wedding for 2 weeks. So when I get back from the honeymoon, which will be, like the beginning of April, maybe I guess the second week of April, is that what it is? Yeah. We're moving. I'm not moving far. We're still living in the Northern Virginia area, but we're going to have to sign a lease, contract, whatever it is going to be, and move, because our lease here is up in June 2027, and we do not want to stay. It's just too small, and we want to be closer to a metro stop. So a lot of reasons to move. So basically, I don't want to deal with my book when I come back, because I'm going to be moving. And then also my summer season starts in April. My tours will kick off again in April. My tour season is essentially the beginning of April, around Easter time, whenever that is, to the end of November. So my last guided tour this year is going to be Sunday, November 22nd. Mainly because the next Sunday is Thanksgiving weekend, and I just don't think people are going to be here for that. And then it's December, and it doesn't get very cold here in DC in December, but it can. It has snowed before, and especially my tours, they're in the morning, Sunday mornings. They're not in the afternoon, so it'll be especially cold December mornings. So anyway, so the point is, with this nonfiction book, my idea is, especially this fall, August now is kind of chill. I'm going to really pick up with my planning for this book. When I say the proposal, it's like I need to, of course, go do some research. So I'm going to Little Rock, Arkansas, woo, because Dr. Bentley died in Little Rock, and all of his papers, his personal and private papers, and then his correspondence, is at the University of Arkansas. So I'm going to go and look at them, which I'm really psyched about. So for the proposal, of course, I need to kind of get a better understanding of what I'm looking at. I could, of course, go to Arkansas after I get a book contract. That's cool. But this biography is not just about his Civil War service. In fact, I would say his early life in Civil War is probably just going to be a third of the book, because after the Civil War, he taught at Howard University. He went to California, Napa Valley, to become the first superintendent of Napa State Hospital, a psychiatric institution. And then he fought in the Black Hills in South Dakota. This is back to back to back, because he went to be the superintendent in 1871. And then 1876, he is in South Dakota, and then 1878, he is assigned, because he's still with the U.S. Army, he's assigned the post surgeon for the Little Rock Arsenal. And that's what gets him into Arkansas. So from 1878 till his death in 1917, he is in Arkansas. So while he's the post surgeon, he helps found the University of Arkansas's medical college. And he becomes the dean of said college around the year 1900, okay? Like 1890s, 1900. So that's his life. So if you can imagine that, like the Civil War period, it's just like, that's like a third of the book. And Arkansas is a huge part of his life. It's like the last several decades. I mean, he's there from the 1870s to 1910s. That's the last 30, 40 years of his life. And if he remarries in Arkansas, and he has his son, Carl, who actually ended up dying childless, but he has 2 daughters with his first wife, Edwina, which is a great name, and then I completely blank on the other daughter's name, but I don't know where they went, so I actually have to do some genealogy with Bentley. I'm thinking that my next video is actually going to be me going on Ancestry.com and kind of finding more about his family. I've mapped out a lot of it already, but I have to really hone in, because as you guys know, with writing a biography, you need to establish those family connections. And luckily we have them. He's not like some enigma, right? So the plan is, this month in August, it's kind of like my off month. Not that this is a slow month at all. It's just I have one workshop, because September 6th launches my fall programs. I have 3 brand new workshops, 4 returning. I'm offering a independent researcher, creative, like I call it the solo scholars support group, and that essentially meets on Sundays. It goes for 8 weeks, and people can focus on a project to complete with this support system, accountability, homework assignments, etc. So there's a lot of things happening in the fall. August starts tomorrow, and there's some other updates for you guys. I'll be going to the Emerging Civil War conference in Fredericksburg next weekend. I'm a member of Emerging Civil War. This is my 2nd year, my first time at the conference. I'm just so happy to meet all these guys who I've corresponded with, I've worked with. I'm also on the social media team for Emerging Civil War, aside from writing articles. So I'll have to help, of course, document the weekend. And then I'm not going on a weekend. It's Sunday the 17th, 18th, 19th. So like a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I'm going out to the middle of West Virginia, Weston, if you're familiar. I'm going to 2 locations, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, also called Weston State Hospital, and then Moundsville Penitentiary, or West Virginia Penitentiary in Moundsville, West Virginia, which is great. I'm so looking forward to this. Such a bucket list item. So yeah, like August is not chill. I have things I'm doing. I'm working on getting this St. Elizabeth's Asylum exhibit kind of up and running and showing the museum that, hey, like we have things to work with. I'm going to be going to these 2 locations. I'm going to continue working on establishing the Bentley biography. The big thing is continuing to identify those primary sources. There's no secondary literature on Bentley. He's not written about. So there's no biography. He's scarcely mentioned in primary sources. Most of his wartime archive from the Civil War is at the National Archives, and I've seen it before, so I know what I'm going into. And then I have one last bit of update for you guys. Again, if you follow me on Instagram, you already know about this, but 3 years ago, I transcribed a Civil War hospital ledger for a museum in Alexandria. Now, I'm no longer affiliated with that museum, and this database, this Excel spreadsheet, was just sitting on my computer. And the museum has not expressed interest in it, and they don't have the ability to kind of house it digitally, because it requires a lot of, you have to have a website that can kind of handle that. So it's been sitting on my computer, and I always felt bad about that, because it's such a wealth of knowledge. Not just because I worked hard to do it, right? But I also want this to be accessible to the public. So I reached out to my friends at the National Museum of Civil War Medicine in Frederick, Maryland, and they will take the ledger, and they're going to make it a searchable, downloadable type database on their website. So for me, they would like me to polish it up, kind of make it more readable, because right now I send it to them as it is, which was for my eyes only, right? It has things in kind of my shorthand. I have a lot of like notes on it because I used those soldiers for articles and research. So I made a lot of notes about like their childhood and people they like fought with and like irrelevant stuff, you know what I mean? And also there are some people that are just completely out of order because in the ledger, they put people in after the fact and it's kind of messy. So I'm going to be this month also polishing up that Excel spreadsheet to send them so that when they essentially make it searchable on the website, it's just kind of like a copy paste situation, make it easier for them. This has been such a wonderful update, you guys. I am so looking forward to this fall. Again, I have all those links down below. Something else I have launched today are purchasable self-study plans, also called personal curriculum. So I'm going to have ones available for the War of 1812, Civil War, Progressive Era, state hospitals / asylums, immigration, like historic immigration in the United States, like Ellis Island type stuff. So many more. I have like so many ideas for things I want to make available to you guys. It'll be available like for teachers, students, or history enthusiasts. It can appeal to a wide range of audiences. So that will also be linked down below. I do have a shop on my website, so if you just go to my website in general, you'll see it right there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm looking forward to coming back next week or the week after, because I will be at the conference, to get back into the Bentley biography, and it's most likely going to be the genealogy. I know I said in the video I made 2 weeks ago I wanted to do a personal curriculum for Bentley, but I realized I need to kind of look more into the primary sources to see what I need to know. Like, I'm not entirely sure what he was doing in the Black Hills. I know he was a surgeon, but I don't, like, when someone says the Black Hills of South Dakota in the Indian Wars, I don't really know what they mean, because I've not studied that too much. I know, of course, what the Indian Wars were, but I don't even know if he was attached to a regiment and stuff. So I need to do more work on my end. But the personal curriculums I'm going to end up making for Bentley are things like 19th century medicine and psychiatry in California, and then like almost one for Little Rock, Arkansas. Like, I want to make one just for Little Rock because I want to kind of study up on it before I go. So those personal curriculum videos for the Bentley biography will probably go up in September, more so after I do some more preliminary research. But they're still on the table. So next week or the week after, we'll look at genealogy, and I can also show you guys some genealogy tips as well. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye!